Greetings. This is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX777. What an exciting, beautiful Saturday night. We are jumping straight into A Practical Guide to Qabalistic Symbolism, Volume 2, written by Gareth Knight. Tonight, we are going to be covering the path represented by the Strength card, right? Let me know if the audio is coming through clear. Sometimes I manage to have a technical difficulty, but I think we're good. If not, let me know. Good stuff, good stuff. So I'll go ahead and let you know we're just doing one path tonight. We made an executive decision. This is going to be in the best interest for everybody. It would be kind of weird to leave off in the middle of the next two paths, seeing as to how this path is the completion of the previous path, or excuse me, the previous study. What I mean by that specifically is, of course, last week we went over this path and this path. Today we will be going over this path to complete this triad of the soul. So for the next few chapters, we're still going to be covering the soul, or should I say the individuality. You could even call it the higher self. The titles are arbitrary. We just use these terms so that we can have a concept of what it's not. You feel me? So it's just a general, smooth brain recap. You know, we got the physical body experience down here. We've got your ego personality, right? Your mind, your thinking capacity, your imagination, the logical aspect of your thoughts, right? That human software, the software that is run on the hardware of the computer, of the body. But see, here's the thing, where there's hardware and there's software, you got to have a user. And that's what we've been covering here for the past week or so. We're getting into the user, because you can't have an effective system without the user. All right? So that's what the soul really is. The soul is the user, not the mind and the body. And the more that you develop that relationship and come to understand it and trust it experientially, not just based off what somebody told you or what a book said, the more that you can come into harmony with that understanding, the better capacity of control, the better degree of control you'll have over your experience. Now, that does not necessarily mean that you're going to manifest a yacht and a Lamborghini, but it means that you're going to invoke the best possible vibration you can for the state that you're in. And that goes an extremely long way. Because why do you need a yacht and a Lamborghini? Right? Why do you need that watch? Why do you need that car? Why do you need the hoes or the bros or whatever you're into? Sometimes our desires are a reflection of our shortcomings. Sometimes our desires are a reflection of our trauma. Is that right? And wouldn't it be better to heal from faulty code? Wouldn't it be better to heal from faulty code than to continue running faulty code with a higher power system? Can you imagine having a computer system and simple code with a flaw in it? And that's okay because you're just using your calculator. But then imagine that computer gets super upgraded, super fast, super efficient, and the software expands and you can do all kinds of things with all kinds of apps. But that flaw is still there in the coding and the programming. Well, while you're able to enjoy that fast computer and that advanced system, there is a weak point that someone, if they know, can have full access to your system and do whatever they want. This is why it's so important to heal our trauma. Because our trauma, our unresolved trauma, and our unresolved beliefs about the world and ourselves and what's going on, those actually serve as gateways for manipulation. Gateways for manipulation. So the more that you start doing work that is concerned with integrating the different aspects of yourself including pathworking, because that's what pathworking is. Pathworking is a laid out process that shows you effective ways to reintegrate your own energies. The more that you do that, the more solid and robust you make your system. It's better than antivirus. You make your software so perfect you don't even need an antivirus. That's what you do when you're doing spiritual study like this. Hmm. Monica says there's an echo. Is there an echo? Do y'all hear an echo? I don't hear an echo. Fat Tony, in the building. This the knowledge you can't get in college. Peace, peace, my brother. Rose of Flame, the genius themselves. Peace and greetings to you. Welcome back once again. Tata, peace, peace. The path of true strength. True strength. SKREMF. Right? Janae, peace, peace. What up, though? What up, though? Detroit 313 in the building. Monica Lawan, peace and greetings. Peace, peace. Ashley B, welcome, 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 my fellow mages. Great to see you, and always great to see potentially what you are creating. Sunshine Chick, always great to see you. Always great to see you any day, any sector of the universe. AZW, my fellow cyclomate, peace, peace, and greetings. We in the building. Boaz Oreki, peace, peace. Coop TGS, my fellow diver into the cliff off. Peace and greetings to you. Are we ready to do this? Are we ready to do this? I'm excited, y'all. I just tapped into some amazing stuff. Let me tell you something. If you fell off your mantras, this is your sign to get back on them things. After last week's live stream, I had my astrology checkup. My astrology, what do you call it? I guess that's what you call it. She broke down some stuff for me, gave me the mantras I needed to do, and I tell you what, that has solved so many things in just a week. Just a week. Now, granted, my situation was a bit difficult. I was required to do 23,000 repetitions of the Shani mantra. But hey, I got time. I got time. Trust and believe. 23,000 repetitions of Om Shan Shanishcharaya Namaha. I did it so much that I found a new way to count on my fingers, right? Because 108 is divisible by 9. It's 12 nines. So I counted 9 on my fingers 12 times. So that way I could just do it when I'm walking, when I'm, I don't know, scrolling through the internet. Anyways, I tell you what, one thing I know about mantra is that it works. It most definitely changes things. So if you're somebody who used to do mantras and for whatever reason you stopped, go ahead and pick that thing back up. Dust off your Rudraksh. Dust it off. Alkalinity light. Peace, peace. Chicanos fighting for higher learning. Peace and greetings, my friend. All right, y'all, we need to get to this text because I've been yapping for 8 minutes. We didn't even start yet. We didn't even start yet. Om Sham Shanishtiraya Namaha. All right, so once again, we are covering the strength path. We're just going to do this one tonight because I got a bunch of videos that I am editing. I think you guys are going to love them. Absolutely love them. The 19th path, Geburah to Chesed. The key is Teth, Serpent. The spiritual significance is Leo, the lion. The theory is daughter of the flaming sword, leader of the lion. Colors, greenish yellow, deep purple, gray, reddish yellow. The text. The 19th path is the intelligence of the secret of all the activities of the spiritual beings. The intelligence of the secret of all the activities of the spiritual beings, and is so called because of the influence diffused by it from the Most High and exalted sublime glory. So we've got the Most High up here, the Most High and exalted sublime glory. That's at the tippity top. And let's see, there's the influence diffused by it from the Most High. So the Most High pushes down influence on this path, and this path is responsible for diffusing that. So guess what that sound, when you hear the word diffuse, what do you think of? Well, some people are going to say they think of a bomb, right? You can diffuse a bomb, which is, that's one way to think about it. Because in Dharana Darshan, he talks about this process when he's explaining the Sahasrara chakra, and he compares it to electricity and power in your house. When the power comes to your house from the big generators up the street at Georgia Power or wherever you live, it has to be stepped down, it has to be broken down, it has to be diffused into a lower current, lower voltage, whatever. Otherwise, your stove and your dryer would explode every time you turn them on. Anything you plug into the wall would explode. So that power has to be diffused. It's got to be stepped down. That's what the crown chakra does. That it steps down the cosmic power of your soul and it diffuses it into the other chakras. Now, when I say diffuse, the other meaning besides, when you diffuse a bomb, the other meaning of diffuse is when light hits a prism and it now becomes scattered into multiple colors. That's called diffusion as well. We've seen that metaphor, haven't we? In fact, whenever I draw that metaphor or use it in what I teach, I always place that prism around the Thoth area. Around the Thoth area. So let's see if that tracks. I put that prism around here because the light comes down and it's diffused. So let's see where the strength path is located. Boom. Right there before it gets Tifereth. Before it hits Tifereth, it's diffused. So my metaphor is always that the higher self it actually functions as that prism that the light comes down into and scatters. And guess what? Guess what those scattered beams of color are? Somebody knows. The red and the blue and the green. These are the different incarnations. Sometimes they're happening at the same time. Sometimes they're happening across time and space. But all the different beams of light that are diffused from the Most High, these are what becomes your personality, your mind, and your body, and everyone else's. So there's multiple incarnations for each soul. But anyways, the Most High pushes down its influence, and it's this 19th path that diffuses that light all around. And we see that the 19th path is actually a part of the anatomy of the soul. So that's like the high function of the soul. Check. Got it? A colleague of mine told me that Kabbalah was boring. And I get it. This isn't exactly the balloon pop show or whatever that show is with all those women fighting every episode. Yeah, it can be boring, right? Because it's very there's a lot of not rules, but a lot of pieces of information that have to be understood. But because I understand what is behind these words, this is the most exciting thing to me, at least. But I'm sure a lot of people find this thing boring. Liam Walker, peace. Om Sham Shanishtaraya Namaha. Janae says, I chanted Ganesh and delivered my third child without any medication. Wow. Talk about mind control, right? Putting yourself under mind control. That's awesome. Elisha Eternal says Pink Floyd cover. Exactly. Liam Walker says it was an overabundance of chesed that caused the shattering of the vessels. Who else would it be, right? We would attribute that to Chokmah, but Chokmah's not in manifestation. So yeah, that is a great assessment. Rosa Flame says, "Oh shit, Trav, I got this one today. Meditate on the Thoth, Eight of Wands, and Hermit together." Okay, I can see the 8 Mercury correlation. All right, I gotta write that down. Hold on. There ain't no way I'm gonna remember that through the book read. Never too much, never too much, never too much. So that's the Thoth, Eight of Wands, and the Hermit card. So that's funny. I just dug out my Crowley deck book today. I just dug that out, so it's right behind me. Reaching distance. Well, shit, since it's right behind me, let me go ahead and check it out. Since we here, fuck it, we'll do it live. So that's the 8 of Wands, you say? Let's check that out. The 8 of Wands. I need a picture of it, though. There we go. Oppression. Where you at? Scrimph. There it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Nope, that's not it. Swiftness, that's what it is. Swiftness, duh. Okay, so here we got the Thoth, 8 of Wands, right? So I'm seeing these lightning bolts and I'm seeing the rainbow. What type of diamond? Is that a diamond? No, that's two pyramids, it looks like, behind it from above. I see Sagittarius and Mercury, of course, because that's the astrological rulership. All right, so let's check out the other one, Hermit. Who rich? Who rich? Rich, rich. The Empire. I'm flipping through, looking for the Hermit. The Empire. Well, the page that I am stuck on, though, is what Crowley calls lust, but this is actually the path that we're reading about right now. Strength. Let's get to that Hermit. Universe, the sun, lust, the Hierophant. Man, this book is all scattered, man. Well, not scattered. I'm just not familiar with it. Okay, so it should be page 227, something like that. Come on, come on, come on. Come and talk to me. Jeez Louise, I gotta go through the whole book. There it is, there it is. Okay, so here's the Hermit card in the Thoth deck. I see Cerebrus. I see him holding the lantern. I see a serpent. Hmm. Okay. Well, I'll look at that a little bit later on. Now that we've got the visual for it. The first, the last, peace and greetings. Fat Tony says it doesn't speak about killing like the Bible. True, true. I like my data neutral so I can make my own opinion about it. I don't like my data to come with opinions. I prefer it not to. Ashley says, never found the Kabbalah boring. Always thought it was fascinating putting the pieces together and realizing how well they fit into any situation. Right, right. But different strokes for different folks. I didn't take it personally or anything. I could see where she was coming from, though. I think really what she was telling me was that it was boring from the average person's perspective. Like this is specialized information. This is like very niche. You got to have a reason to study this. But boring is the last thing I call it, for sure. Last Eternal says, I got the deck. I probably should get the book. Yeah, it's really, really helpful. Really, really helpful. Because I wanted to have more, as much of a well rounded understanding of these cards as possible. Liam Walker says, you're so adorable, Trav. I love your vibe. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Do you know Foth? Roth? Uh, Moth? Maybe. Okay, well, we need to get back to this text, huh? Moth Ra, peace, peace. Kevros SS God, peace. Kevros says, too much lust, a good thing? It depends on the application of it, right? It depends on the balance in the application of it. It becomes increasingly difficult to balance and properly apply a force like that. But if you're someone who can wield it with grace, then hey, it's a case by case basis. But for the average typical human being, anything can be destructive in large quantities, especially lust. Not my problem, give me some. You can try the best you can. You can try the best you can. The best you can is good enough. E-Town finally made it to class on time. Kind of, sort of. This is going to be a short one, and I'm kind of late. My gnosis, peace, and greetings, brethren, cosmic peak pushers. Peace to you. Good luck out there. Good grace out there, or whatever us spiritual people say. I know we don't say good luck. We don't say be safe. What do we say? What do we say? What is the what do spiritual people say? I'm not caught up on the loop. Janae, oh whoa, peace, peace. Somebody let me know how we wish each other well wishes out here. I don't want to be called a monitoring spirit. There we go. May the force be with you. May the force be with you, my gnosis. And grand rising. Be smooth. Be smooth. I kind of like that one. I kind of like that one. Be smooth. All right, let's be smooth with the text. Because otherwise, this short video will turn into 5 hours like the others. So, the 19th path is the intelligence of the secret of all the activities of the spiritual beings, and is so called because of the influence diffused by it from the Most High and exalted sublime glory. So, we know what that means. The Most High is beaming down high potency consciousness. And this particular path is distributing it and stepping it down so that the rest of existence can do what it needs to do with it. Tell me this shit fell out your pocket, man. Tell me this shit fell out your pocket, man. I got it right. I was saying it wrong all this time. He didn't say you threw my mixtape in the toilet. He said, tell me this fell out your pocket, man. Oh, so funny. Tell me this shit fell out your pocket, man. Rhyme me Wheezy. Peace, peace. May the force be with you. Grand rising. Grand rising, beloved. Tell me that shit fell out your pocket, man. It's from Hustle and Flow. The scene where he finds his mixtape that he gave to Ludacris, and he finds it in the he finds it in the shitty toilet, and he was just so heartbroken, so heartbroken. Tell me that shit fell out your pocket, man. Man, good lord, good lord. Where do y'all see this Goetia shit I got for y'all? It's about to be a dark side revival up in this motherfucker. But as a Gemini, it's very difficult for me to keep my mouth zipped. But I'm super excited to get back to editing those videos, so that's the reason for the short live stream. Hard out here for a pimp. All right, so verse 1, finally. As the 27th path, a path of great dynamic power, is the main girder of the personality, so is the 19th path, also one of great force, the main girder of the individuality. Just real quick, let's take a look at that, because visual examples help. So he said the 27th path is the main girder for the lower self, for the mind. And we see, because the 19th path is the main girder for the soul. And what's a girder? You think about a building, right, with steel beams or whatever holding it up. Well, if you got these pillars that are the structure of the building, you got to have those girders that are going across, right, kind of holding, bearing the weight, right? Bearing the weight of what? Shit, the weight of consciousness, the weight of undifferentiated consciousness. And it, like I said, just like with the electricity, Georgia Power doesn't just plug straight into your house. It's got to be stepped down. It's got to be diffused. That power would destroy everything. So it has to be diffused and broken down into consumable parts so that you can use it. So that breakdown is done by the soul via the 19th path, and it's broken down even further by the 27th path. Does anybody here remember what the 27th path is? Bonus points. Bonus points if you don't have to look it up. But these two paths are what bears the weight, so to speak. They bear the weight. One for the lower self, one for the higher self. Right? Right. There we go. Temperance. There we go. He's on it, doggone it. So the temperance bears the weight for the lower self, for the consciousness. And here's Big Sister bearing the weight for the higher self. So it makes a little bit more sense why this one would be called strength, or as we say in the South, scrimp. They got the same outfit on too, don't they? Same outfit, right? It's really cool to see the similarities on the cards, isn't it? And understand that it's not by coincidence. You gotta have a certain kind of paycheck to afford that white robe. Everybody ain't rocking that white robe like temperance and scrimp. Wait a minute. Hold up. Wait. See, now I gotta dig out my book. I'm leaning on y'all. See, I guess that's why I gotta be the teacher. Give me that wrong answer. How dare you? What does the text say? The tower. The tower is the main girder for the lower self. It is temperance that's coming down the channel on the middle path, just like the high priestess. Excuse my mistake, Liam Walker. So we've got strength as the main girder for the higher self. This is the correction here. And then we've got the tower as the main support for breaking down undifferentiated consciousness as it comes down through the soul. We've got the tower. So how does the symbolism work with that? Where's my tower card? I think up there it is. So it's the tower card that is breaking down the pure undifferentiated consciousness as it filters into the lower self. Makes sense, right? Smacking the crown off that ego. Leo, Mars. Different color robe. All right, let's continue. Ilah, peace, peace. Ilah says if you learn how to use Geburah and Chesed together, you begin to open Zir and Pin, a small face of God, which begins to connect you to the upper Sephirah. They was in white robes. All right. So, as the 27th path, a path of great dynamic power, just like, yeah, that's the tower card right there. So, as the 27th path, a path of great dynamic power is the main girder of the personality. So is the 19th path, which is strength, also one of great force. So is strength the main girder of the individuality. As the spiritual significance of the 27th path was shown by the strong fiery planet Mars, had I kept reading, I would have got that. So is the spiritual significance of the 19th path shown by the equally strong and fiery sign of Leo. The packing force of the 27th path is that which holds the diverse aspects of the unit of incarnation. Okay, so that's the tower card. That's the girder for the lower self. The packing force of the 27th path is that which holds the diverse aspects of the unit of incarnation, the personality, together. The packing forth of the 19th path holds the unit of evolution, the individuality, together. So the tarot trump of this path is, not unnaturally, strength. A woman holding apart, without effort, the jaws of a lion. Now, that unpacking force he's talking about there, you can kind of see the soul and then the individuality, the individuality and the personality as like cups or like wine glasses, maybe even filled with sand. And then there's a certain amount of pressure that's pushing down on that sand to keep it into place. A deep force. I might as well get this printed out on a separate piece of paper at this point. But that packing force of the energy behind the tower card is what's holding together the human mind. So it would make sense that crossing that border would be a very potentially traumatic experience. And likewise, it would take great strength to cross this barrier, especially with all the weight pressing down on it. Okay, I'm already starting to see something new here. I'm already starting to see this from a new perspective here. Rain down. And also look what he said there in that last line. A lot of people don't notice that. I'm sure you guys did though. She isn't forcing that lion's mouth open. This is not an act of violence. Both of them look like they're having a good old time. So we're talking about a different type of strength than one that we would assume. The lion is a common alchemical symbol representing the uncontrolled forces of nature. That screams elementals to me. Uncontrolled forces of nature in the subjective world. Okay, so we're talking about in the realm of the mind, in the world of perception, everywhere except the physical plane. So the lion is a common alchemical symbol representing the uncontrolled forces of nature in the subjective world, apart from the complex of symbolism which surrounds it in its function as a cherubic sign of fire, or the root of fire. The woman may be considered an aspect of the throned woman of the 14th path, the Empress. So she's an aspect of the Empress, and she certainly has the same dress on. The 14th path is the path within the spirit itself, which corresponds with what the 19th path is to the individuality of the 27th path. The 14th path is the path within the spirit itself, which corresponds with what the 19th path is to the individuality, and the 27th path is to the personality. So the 14th path of the Empress serves the same purpose in its design to the spirit, serves the same purpose as what strength serves to the soul and what the tower serves to the lower self. So he just mentioned that packing force that kind of holds it all together, that girder that supports this transmission, this communication of consciousness. Coop TGS says, is that an infinity sign above her head or a symbol for equilibrium or both? That's a good question. Interesting. Look at what's above his head. God, science, peace and greetings. Okay, so the Empress card serves that same function to the spirit as what's happening with the Strength card serves to the soul, and what's happening with the Tower card that's serving to the lower self. They are all girders. They are all paths that go from left to right. The link between these paths is further pronounced in that the lion is held by the mouth, which is the signification of the Hebrew letter Peh on the 27th path. Ah, okay. 3. The lion symbolism is also found in the spiritual significance of the path Leo, the lion. This constellation has been regarded as of fundamental importance in many esoteric systems, notably in that of the Golden Dawn, which revived the astronomical system of Ptolemy of Alexandria. This system, instead of the now usual method of measuring right ascension and longitude from a supposititious point divided by the equinox and called 0 degrees of Aries, considers the start of the zodiac to be the star Regulus. Hmm. Calculation by this method avoids the gradual discrepancy through the years between the signs of the zodiac and the actual constellations caused by the precession of the equinox. Prince Mugo, peace and greetings. Four, Regulus, the name means star of the prince, is in the constellation of Leo and has the significant alternative title of Corleonis. Corleone, the heart of the lion. That's what that means. So we have the constellation of the lion as the starting point of the zodiac. Just as on the tree of life, the lion represents the first formation of the individuality from Chesed. The individuality is the projected unit in the worlds of form, and it performs all activities of the spiritual being. The individuality is the projected unit in the worlds of form, and it performs all activities of the spiritual being. So it behaves on behalf of the spirit. This explains the gist of the Yetziratic text, and the spiritual being itself is, of course, represented by the woman on the tarot card. Ah, it's bigger than hip hop. Whose figure of eight, hat, emphasizes her link with eternity. The activities themselves could be called a lesser subject of Zodiac, representative of the 12 tasks of Hercules, that mythological representative of humanity, who, incidentally, wore a lion skin on his back. Okay, okay. So I used to believe that this was the higher self, this was the physical body. But in truth, we have to shift that up an octave. She's actually representing the soul, and that's why she's got the infinity. I forgot what that's called. Lemniscate. That's why she's got the lemniscate above her head. She represents the spirit. That would also explain the white robe. And it's the lion itself that represents the soul. And remember that this activity here with the mouth, the Hebrew word for the Hebrew figure that represents the tower card is pei, which means mouth. So that shows the connection there. That shows the connection. The mouth, you could even say the physical body, the mind, not the physical body, but the mind is the mouthpiece of the soul in this situation. All connected. All connected. Hercules wore a lion skin on his back. 5. The symbols of this path, the lion, the serpent of the Hebrew letter, the flaming sword of the esoteric title of the tarot card, suggests many other traditions. There is the biblical story of Adam and Eve and the serpent in the Garden of Eden, which is an allegory of the fall of the human race into the worlds of form. This primordial event, not to be confused with the prime deviation, has analogs with the 19th path in that this path is the way of coming forth into activity of the human soul after its initial projection into form in Chesed. It will be remembered that Adam and Eve were prevented from returning immediately to Eden by an angel with a flaming sword. The latter symbol gives a link with our tarot trump, and the angel may be considered a personalization of the forces of this path. For this path holds the pattern of all the activities of the spiritual beings, the first offspring. And the destiny of these activities is not an immediate return to spirit, but a rounding of the nadir in earth first. Okay, so that line gives a little bit of perspective as well. We first heard of that rounding of the nadir from Dion Fortune, and basically what she was saying was that you don't just go up to Kether. You got to come down, reach Keth, reach Malkuth, go through Malkuth, come around Malkuth, and swing back up. You don't skip steps. You must pass go and collect 200. Coop TGS says Cosmic Doctrine, and she mentioned that in this book as well. But the point is, once entered into manifestation, you must hit that low point and bring your ass back up. You can't come up before you go down. Can't come up before you go down. And I think that those of you who have lived A life full of experiences might see a pattern that reflects in your life. There's ups and there's downs. And if you keep your head right, the ups always follow the downs. I had a vision of this in my meditation. I want to say, yeah, last night. I wrote it in my notes. I realized that the cycles of our lives, or at least my life, of growth, it's not merely just ups and downs. I think it's a lot like the planets and how sometimes they go into retrograde. If you look at the retrograde motion, it's like they go up in a direction and they kind of stall and kind of come back a little bit, and then they shoot forward again. Then they kind of come back and stall, and they shoot forward again. That retrograde motion, and it feels like uh, growth is like that. Breaking through to a new level is often like that. You'll hit this ceiling, but you got to come back a little bit, and it's almost as if that coming back down is building momentum to swing back up. And I think part of the plan is to really learn how to ride that wave. Even humans go through retrograde. Just don't stop when you're down, because you're going to come up. You always do. Can I get an amen, brothers and sisters? You will rise from your retrograde. You will rise from your retrograde, my brother, my sister. Pick your head up. You're coming out of your retrograde. Hallelujah. You're coming out of your retrograde. Hallelujah. Get your ass out that retrograde. Stand up before the Lord. Let's continue. What comes up must go down. And what goes down, it's got to come back up. And that's what the unfortunate was talking about as far as rounding the nadir. So what I said that I figured out was just now is that I always thought it was all the way, but it looks like once you hit and cross through this barrier, you might have to circle around down here for a little bit until you're perfectly rounded out, smoothed around the edges, and basically dissolved until you can make your way back up. That's what it looks like so far. There's a reason why you don't just cross Thoth and go back home. My initial understanding was that you don't fit. You don't fit through the hole. So you got to release everything so that you can go through. That was my initial belief. But it's starting to shape, especially learning about how the soul itself isn't perfect, how the soul is also growing and learning things. So there might be a little bit, it's not so cut and dry. Hmm, hmm. Hallelujah. Jesus on the main line. So the flaming sword is a symbol of this path. The angel that is preventing Adam and Eve from re-entering heaven is conveniently standing before, excuse me, preventing Adam and Eve from entering Garden of Eden is conveniently placed before Doth. Ain't that something? Ain't that something? So it will be remembered that Adam and Eve were prevented from returning immediately to Eden by an angel with a flaming sword. The latter symbol gives a link with our tarot trump, and the angel may be considered a personalization of the forces of this path. For this path holds the pattern of all the activities of the spiritual beings. Look, this path holds the pattern of all the activity of the spiritual beings. Basically, this is the representative. Like, you don't get to see the president, you get to see me. My word is just as good as far as you're concerned, right? We talking about the what's a good analogy for this position right here? It's like you don't see the mafia boss, you get to talk to his right hand man, right? Nobody ever gets to really see the plug. You gotta talk to his right hand man. You don't get past him. You aren't qualified enough. So this path, right? The strength card, this barrier, this girder, as he called it, holds the pattern of all the activities of the spiritual beings. And it would make sense, right? Because it's this path that disperses the light down into manifestation. I am that I am. Peace. I am that I am says, I was just thinking about the soul group convo from the last read. Looked over and voila, you're live. Fitting how that works, huh? Elisha Eternal says, the gatekeeper. Okay. And that's funny, right? There's no kind of bribe. There's nothing you can slip in his pocket or her pocket or their pocket. You don't get past this gatekeeper unless you qualified. Adam and Eve couldn't do it. And there was only two people at the time, supposedly. Cradle Soul says the bouncer. Yes, the bouncer of heaven. And this is what's crazy. Even if you got past the bouncer, you still got to cross the abyss. So you might be better off down here, honestly, for now. The bouncer's keeping us safe and keeping God untainted. Because the soul doesn't return until it's perfected. Once it's perfected, then it ceases to exist and goes up that channel. I like it. I like it. I think one of the unspoken patterns that I'm seeing here about evolution is that once your job is done, the vehicle dissolves, literally because there's no more use for it. So it's like you stop reincarnating as a human being once you've collected all the human being experiences. Once you got all that, there's no need to be a human being anymore. So the human experience dissolves. That tie is cut. And you go up to that soul level. And I would imagine that the soul would have to do its blending with the other souls until it no longer needs soul experience. We probably have a long ass way to go, huh? Or maybe not. Who knows? It doesn't really matter. We could be like exactly in the middle of our cosmic journey. Shit, we could be right at the beginning too. We could have just fell. Who knows? Who cares? Let's get back to it. One thing about the what ifs, you can have what if questions forever. At some point, you just got to stop and be like, all right, what's useful? What's appropriate? Because you can get lost in them what ifs, huh? How many people here get lost in them what ifs? What if this version of the Kabbalah they're teaching us is corrupted and it's supposed to be upside down and there's actually 43 paths and Crawley was evil and what if and what if? And you can go down that rabbit hole forever. At the end of the day, what's useful, what's appropriate? I don't give a shit about none of that. Tell me what works. Point me in the direction of what works. By the way, I posted a video earlier today about just needing a direction. Sometimes when you're feeling stuck or you're feeling lost, sometimes it helps to just get a direction and take a step. Because we get stuck, right? We get stuck. Um, so I did that video and then I was doing some studying and I come to find out that is the energy of the the path of the chariot. That's literally what the chariot card is. I just put that together after the video. The chariot card is move on faith. Just move. Just make that movement. And it's the movement that shapes the journey. So that all that was the energy about the chariot. Pretty cool. Crowley's evil. Did you hear what he does? And he did drugs. He had orgies. Well, shit, that sounds like some of your favorite celebrities and musicians and politicians. He died penniless. Why are we pocket watching a dead man from like 100 years ago? Like, what are we really doing here? There goes gravity. ML says, if were a fifth, then we'd all be drunk. Nice. If were a fifth, we'd all be drunk. Cosmic Puzzle, peace. Peace. Mothra says, I'm new here. Welcome, welcome. But from what I can tell, this channel doesn't seem to subscribe to any specific belief system. It seems like it's just straight occult science. You wouldn't be wrong in saying that. That works. I'll take it. Crowley died penniless. What does that do for you? He said, do what thou wilt. Jay-Z had a do what thou wilt shirt on. Enough. Jay-Z threw up the diamond rock with his eye in the middle. God bless America. Rosa Flame says Crowley didn't die penniless. That's what I've heard the complainers say. I don't know. It was never really a concern of mine, so I didn't look it up. But hell, I imagine that you're right. He had money from the get-go, so yeah. Dub VT in the building. Peace, peace, my friend. WT says, peace, Trav, peace, chat. Yeah, that chariot was on point. For me, it was like the bus was outside and your video was the, hey, wake up nudge. Yeah, man. Let's say that your comment came at a perfect time because I needed to do a little bit more moving myself. And I did that. And a massive weight was lifted off of my shoulders. Ashley B says, and the chariot is between Binah and Geburah, so that makes sense. Faith and action. Hell yeah. Alexander Baca says, very much cults sucks when you are try and move forward. Are you one of these thieves? I, Coop TGS says, that Crowley died penniless shit used to fuck with me. Am I gonna end up like that? Like if I fuck with this shit, Crowley was the real deal. To me, took me many years to see clearly. Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. But like I said, at the end of the day, none of those little bitchy, whiny complaints matter at all. That serves as a placeholder for people who are scared, I think. That's a good excuse that's your ticket so you can say, I don't have to move forward. You know what I mean? Like when I was in high school and I used to look up all this conspiracy theory stuff and reptilians and Illuminati, and my dad was trying to talk me into choosing what college degree I wanted to get. What are you going to do? What college degree? What path? What course? And I'm just thinking to myself, well, the Illuminati controls the world and it's all going to end, so why even bother with college, right? But really what I was doing was I didn't want to make a decision. I was too scared, and I used that as an excuse. I think that's what a lot of these people do with their little complaints and flapping of loose lips that stink. The demiurge. The archons are eating us. Original Cosmic Being, peace. Original Cosmic Being says, what do you think about the Abramelin rituals? I mean, I heard they were cool. Any ritual that you take seriously and actually do for a consistent period of time is going to get you results. Doesn't matter what ritual you do, as long as you take it seriously and do it consistently. Liam Walker says he published Magic Without Tears before he died. I Am That I Am says he probably reached a point of development where money meant nothing to him. Absolutely. Coop TGS says Trav, are reptilians elementals? I would probably, I think from my level of understanding, and I don't know what a fucking reptilian is. I might have seen one. I might have seen one, but I think that they're symbols of that of primordial history. I think that they're symbols of primordial history. Honestly, so far, that definition and belief in my brain is still subject to change. That Wikipedia page is not locked. So at this point in time, I'm thinking that they're symbols of primordial history. Patchwork in the building. Peace, peace. Patchwork says, isn't the demiurge just the false self? I wonder what Ophiel had to say about the demiurge. Ophiel's got some good insight on that subject. Ilah says, magic, it's more important to use awareness. If you don't know what you're doing, you will hurt yourself and those you care about. Patience in learning is better than doing spells. Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. And I also know human nature. And your advice is great, but most people will have to learn in a different kind of way. I cared more about practicing spells than doing the right thing. But I learned and I evolved. I grew. Okay, back to the text. I swear we're going to finish this in a timely manner. So, all this from this path of strength, this 19th path, holds the pattern of all the activities of the spiritual beings. And the destiny of these activities is not an immediate return to spirit, right? Because we got Thoth, we got the abyss there. It's not just down and back up, but a rounding of the nadir in earth first, right? That's where we stop. 6, Corleones reminds us of Richard the First of England, who, although by no means an ideal king, captured the popular imagination with his nickname of the Lionheart. He had it not been for the deeper mythological implications of King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table, this king might well have been the nucleus, that's a sun reference, nucleus of an even greater legend cycle. He is intimately associated with Robin Hood and his merry men of Sherwood Forest, who, like the Round Table Knights, were upholders of a new law and had their eyes fixed upon a set of ideals by which to live their lives. This attitude of living out a principle is in truth an activity of the spiritual being in earth. This attitude of living out a principle is in truth an activity of the spiritual being in earth. Remember the activity of spiritual being? This particular path that we're talking about right now holds all of the activities of the spiritual beings. 7. Whereas, apart from the more esoteric implications, the Arthurian knights were striving to replace the old law of revenge with the new law of chivalry. The outlaws of Sherwood Forest were, in a way, forerunners of the Aquarian Age, which, by the way, is maybe about 400 years away from us, but we're closer than ever. The age of Pisces is still exciting. Pisces is nice too. You guys can enjoy Pisces. There's nothing wrong with the age of Pisces. The outlaws of Sherwood Forest were, in a way, forerunners of the Aquarian Age. Their policy of robbing the rich to give to the poor was a crude attempt at the more enlightened social justice and equality of persons of our own day. The fact that they numbered a man of religion, Friar Tuck, and a woman, Maid Marian, in their midst also gives some esoteric hints as to what lay behind their brand of idealism. There seems to be, as in the Arthurian cycle, a combination of the nature-loving Celtic Christianity and the Queen Venus cult of southern France. The story of Blondel finding his master, King Richard, by singing outside all the prisons of Europe, gives a link with the trover and the troubadour tradition. Richard was himself the son of Eleanor and Aquitani, who, a leading patron of courtly love, greatly influenced the English group's soul after her marriage to Henry II. Oh man, so you guys have studied too much. I didn't trigger anybody. Everybody already knows. Well, damn. I could have had somebody mad. Nobody took the bait. I'm proud of you guys, but kind of stole a bit of my fun there. But here's the thing, right? Manly Hall said the age of Pisces ends at 2400, yet there is a crossover. Yeah, and here's the thing. We're dealing with the science of astrology, right? The people on TikTok go with their feelings, but if it's a science, that means that there's an observable, traceable thing that would define the age, right? Just like a clock. If the small hand hits 8, you know it's 8 o'clock. What's the defining factor of the age? Because it's not based on feelings or beliefs. This is astrology or astronomy. Alkalinity Light says, "Ah, Trav, you triggered me." Oh, you didn't speak up. A lot of people feel like it's the age of Aquarius, but you're probably feeling the fact that Pluto entered into Aquarius, and that's a strong feeling. But anyways, I'll let Kristen explain that since she's the astrology buff. The whole of this cycle is predominantly upon the green ray, but the relevance to the 19th path stems from the attitude of living out an ideal, a difficult but an ennobling task. The hazards of bringing spiritual principles down to earth and living them out is particularly obvious in another story connected with this path, Daniel and the Lion's Den. If you've got a text, I hope that you're highlighting stuff because that's an important thing right there. What he said previously, um, this attitude of living out a principle is in truth an activity of the spiritual being in earth. So there are principles, right? And are principles physical? No, principles are abstract. So principles are abstract. And when a human being commits to being a vessel, an anchor for an abstract principle, right? And then they live out that principle, that is an activity of the spiritual being. You're accessing the highest part of the soul. I call the soul a potentiality because it contains the potential of expression for all of your different incarnations. And being able to live and express the energies contained therein is going to be a much higher activity, a much higher cycle of living than just reflecting what's already down here, doing what everybody else is doing, being a part of the root social matrix, the egregore of man. Jack says, is Kristen in the chat? I don't think so. I think she had a thing tonight. She does things. Like she teaches in person and stuff. That's pretty cool. We were talking. This might be a little bit down the line later the year, but I haven't had a live event in so long. I think I'm overdue. We might put something together up north. Would you guys come out to see a Travis Magus event in like the New York area? The witchy part of New York, not the big city, you know, 50 Cent New York. Just throwing that out there. It's a possibility. We might put something together. Maybe round up a couple favorites, you know. Might reach out to some of your favorites, get a little thing going. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Have a meet and greet, shake some hands, drop somebody's mixtape in the toilet. Tell me this shit fell out your pocket, man. Hell, Trav, man. Tell me this shit fell out your pocket, man. Look, I don't have pockets on any article of clothing, so it wasn't me. I don't know, something in the works. Maybe you guys can help manifest that. But anyways, let's get back to this for sure. Tell me this shit fell out your pocket, man. Phoenix Wolfette, peace. And see, I met you at the last live event. You are so welcome in my neck of the woods. Come on through. Yeah, I don't know. We're talking about it. We might set something up. I think that'd be pretty interesting. Be nice to get out the house for a little bit. Do some live tarot reading or something like that. Do a live ritual. Get some incense and some. We'll turn the lights low. Have the spooky music playing. Maybe summon up a demon in front of everybody. You know, type shit. Mm. Daniel in the Lion's Den. Daniel and his companions, like many others before and since the exemplary life of the Christ, put the values of their own spirits before the expediences of the world of unregenerate men. Such was their faith that neither flame nor wild beast could harm them. So, what's that? Such was their faith that neither flame nor wild beast could harm them. What about their faith? Let's read it again. Because I know you heard about the story of the pastor who jumped into the cage of lions at the zoo, and he said that God will protect him because his faith was strong. And he's a pile of bones that are stripped clean because them lions did not care about white Jesus. They were hungry. Daniel and his companions, like many others before and since the exemplary life of the Christ, put the values of their own spirits before the expediences of the world of unregenerate men. So, what would that look like for you? What would it look like for you to put the value of your spirit, right? Your highest aspect. What would that look like for you in your life to put that part of yourself above, far above what these other dipshits are doing? Excuse me, what these other people are doing in the world. What would that look like for you to put the value of your soul, your spirit above the fuck shit that's going on in the world? What would that look like for you? If you've never thought about that, maybe think about that. And I don't mean no, you know, posing and pretending and saying something that sounds good. Like, what does it actually look like for you to walk in such a way that you are holding your spirit in such high esteem? In more, you give the utmost authority to your soul and to your spirit before the president, before your boss, before your family members and friends and clubs and all this other stuff? What would that look like? The last eternal says Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego as well in the Bible. Absolutely. Bible study days. Patrick says, not really supposed to tempt God like that. One preacher did. That's not what I've heard anyway. Yeah, faith does not mean that you disregard common sense. That's not what faith means. And if we don't know, right? We can't ask him because he's not in one piece anymore. Who knows? Maybe his soul did tell him to do that because it was time to go. We don't know. We can't judge him because we don't know. I didn't hear any conversations before the event, so that's one of those what ifs. What's useful and appropriate about that example? Not much other than I'm not going to do it. Rosa Flame says it looks nice. Awesome, awesome. Like, yeah, just take a moment to think about it because sometimes that in itself can be an indicator or a signpost of what direction you're going. I like to think about that. So such was their faith that neither flame nor wild beast could hurt them. Because these folks, Daniel in the lion's den, it wasn't like he was just this dude that jumped in the lion's den. His whole framework was built around knowing God, listening to God, and following God without question, without doubt, without fear. Oh, imagine the kind of power he had access to. Of course, flame is not going to burn him, and wild beast ain't going to hurt him. This man knows the secrets of nature. You dig? 10. Daniel is credited with being boom, right there it is, right there, right? See, people think that these folks in the Bible was just like, the local redneck at the church. No, these people were learned. They were learned. And I don't necessarily mean book learned. I mean, they spent the time to get to know their higher self. They spent the time to get to know God personally and develop a real relationship. Not, hey, Lord, it's me again. If you could just give me $20 this week. Not that. I mean, like an actual relationship with God. Them Bible folks was really doing that, assuming that they were historical people. It doesn't matter if they were or not. It doesn't matter. What matters is that they are archetypes, they are examples, they are symbols. Now, Daniel is credited with being a master magician, as one might expect from one who could bring down the powers of the spirit so strongly that they could directly control the forces of the earth. That's what I'm talking about right there. There are few who could conquer the lions and fires of their own subjective passions in this way. That's why I said, what does it look like for you? What does it look like for you? There are few who could conquer the lions and fires of their own subjective passions in this way, let alone their counterparts in the objective world, right? If you can't mind control yourself, you ain't got no business trying to do it to and for other people, right? Have you dealt with your lusts, your passions, your weaknesses? Everybody wants to help everybody else. Everybody wants to do this, and I'm a spiritual coach. I'm a healer, and if I touch you on your back and your chest, then I can heal you. Everybody wants to do these things, but have you done it within yourself first? That's the prerequisite. Yeah, I'm a spiritual massage therapist. You know what I'm saying? My hands go where the Lord directs me, where the Spirit directs me. No, ma'am. Yeah, my gift is my hands. Spirit flows through my hands. Atropa, peace and greetings. Good evening. Good to see you. 5008. Peace. 5008 says it does. It flows through the hands. Hey, well, there you go. Go out and touch the world. Heal the world with that magical touch. You know, they call me a massage shaman. You know, I'll do it for free, actually. You know, I'll show you a. I'm sure that guy exists out there somewhere. But yeah, the point wasn't whether or not energy is in your hands. The point was, are you able to manage and control the forces within yourself before you're trying to do it on other people? That was the point. Hmm. Coop TGS says seeking change outside without dealing with your own shit. That's got to be the definition of the elephant in the room. And that's how most people live, right? That's how most of us live. Well, not us, but that's how most people live. JS says it's not healing. All comes with a price. Think about the exchange. What is being exchanged? Absolutely. Absolutely. Stay away from those cosmic massage therapists. Or not. I'm not going to stay away from them. So, once again, there are few who could conquer the lions and fires of their own subjective passions in this way. And that's the big part right there, right? Let alone their counterparts in the objective world. Needless to say, complete mastery of subjective work should always precede any objective experiments. So there's a big focus on the subjective, on the internal, right? On the inner structure of the understanding of the self. That's first and foremost. After that comes the physical world examples. Ideally, of course. Failure to realize this has led many would be magicians astray. The Order of the Golden Dawn was a case in point, as may be seen from some of their published rituals. They tried to control the elements without, before having gained control of the elements within. This is exactly why my elemental class, Elemental Magic Mastery System, is all about identifying and controlling the elements within. That's the prerequisite. Mothra says, has anyone here heard of Israel Regardi? He has some great audio recordings on meditation and visualization. That sounds really interesting. I would definitely suggest keeping up with that and maybe sharing something with us if you find it. So, so they tried to control the elements without before having gained control of the elements within. This is asking for trouble for anyone of less than Adeptus Minor grade. That is, one who has attained Tifereth or individuality consciousness and control. In other words, a relationship with the higher self. Spiritual authority is what I call it. Crowley calls it the knowledge conversation with the holy guardian angel. These are stages, right? And it's not like a pin that you wear on your chest. When you hit these stages, how you see and move about in the world drastically changes. Not a little bit, drastically changes. But of course, once you reach that level, 11. A similar legend is that of Androcles and the lion. This story has come down to us much like a cautionary tale, with the moral of always being kind to animals. While one cannot quarrel with such sentiments, there is much more to it than this. And the same could be said of most stories that have caught the popular imagination generation after generation. In all cases, there is a certain amount of distortion of the original, but beneath this overlay is always a deep esoteric teaching. Uh-oh, did I skip one? You just skipped one. No, I didn't. We're on the right track. Peace and greetings to anybody who has joined late. Welcome to the book study. The 19th path, like the 22nd path, is one which lies on the course of the lightning flash, and so has additional significance. After the image of the spirit has been projected from Bina through Thoth to Chesed, it begins to build up a dynamic round of activity. This process is represented by the 19th path from Chesed to Geburah. That's the strength card. That's where we're at. The path is naturally one of great dynamism and purity, as great dynamism and purity, as it is so close to the first manifestation of the spirit in the worlds of form, subject, of course, to the proviso that owing to the deviation, the image in Chesed may not be the true image of the spirit. Ah, are we getting into demiurge territory here? Patchwork? Rosa Flame says, oh man, and spirit just came through that number 4. Form. Hmm. From Sophia to the demiurge, huh? 13. Treading the path the other way from Geburah to Chesed is the initiatory path of the Adeptus Major to the exempt adepthood of Chesed, a state of being where further incarnation in earth is unnecessary. Oh, I want to be in that number when the saints go marching in. The realizations of this path are therefore particularly profound, for they are the end result of the experience and understanding of a complete cycle of evolution. So, real quick, just kind of wrap your mind around that. The ascended masters, they're not just simply somebody who prayed a lot, meditated a lot. This is somebody who has completed the human evolution. That kicks it up so many notches. Break the knob off of that thing. This is a human being who has accelerated their evolutionary cycle. They have evolved past humanity. What that means is they completely integrated and understood all possible human experience. There's literally no reason for them to incarnate as a human being anymore. So imagine what that must be like to have the entirety of the human experience in your database. So much so that it's like, well, I mean, shit. Why would I go back to Earth? Not even in like, oh, Earth sucks. Like, not even like that, but just like, why would I go back to third grade? You know, it's like, why would I go back to kindergarten? I have no reason to go to kindergarten. Like, no reason, you know? Or like if you were working at some job for 5 years and now you don't, now you work somewhere else. Why would you go back to the office and the stock room? And you know what I'm saying? Like, there's no reason to do that. So think about that when we think about these ascended masters. They're not just a sweet, holy, nice person up in the sky that you can pray to. This is somebody who completed the journey. Cool stuff. Frame Star Films. Welcome. 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 Peace, peace, my brother. peace in the Middle East, as they say. Jesus Christ had dreads, so shake 'em. I ain't got none, but I plan on growing some. Imagine all the Hebrews whipping tight ones. Ashley B says for the snacks, lol. JK, JK. Yeah, the snacks can be tempting. Don't. I understand. Fasting really helps with that, though. Rosa Flame says philanthropy. Yeah, supposedly they're given the option to come back and help or to stay where they are, supposedly. But I don't know. I wonder if that's even a choice. I wonder if they've completed the cycle of evolution, perhaps they rightfully have earned the decision to keep it moving. Like if they completed the cycle, there's hardly any reason for them to come back. Now, of course, yeah, a few. Well, yeah, like what we read in previous chapters, right? There's these ascended masters who no longer have a physical vehicle because they completed that part of the training, but they have this like I don't know, energetic cloud, this imprint in these subtle planes that could still be accessed. Oh, that's what it was. Remember it was saying how they can still access that soul group, and I think it was like using a previous incarnation or something like that. I'm gonna have to go back and read it. Patchwork says many of them do come back to help, but not in physical form. Absolutely. I wonder what the number is, right? I wonder like what the percentage is. Like, I wonder if this is like a common thing or extremely rare. People who, you know, go that far. El Shaddai, peace, peace. Ilah says, I gotta go for now. Love the channel, Travis. Bye. Have a good evening, Ilah. Thanks for coming through, my friend. Closing time. I'll have to sing that at the end. Time for you to go out to the places you will be from. I know who I want to take me home. I like that era of music. It's really nice. Where I couldn't tell if it was depressing or uplifting. I like things that are like on the verge of each other. Those are some of the best things. I know who I want to take me home, take me home. Benjamin37, peace. Welcome, welcome. Pork Hill in the building. Peace, my friend. Star Lion, peace, peace. Oh, y'all came here at the same time. Did you catch the game last night? Chicano's fighting for higher learning. I'm looking at the picture Ophiel has in his book about the demiurge. Just beautiful, Brother Deacon. Dragon and the roots of the tree, that primordial history, and the first expression of spirit into materialization. Benjamin37 says, I plan on becoming rich and having a lot of sex so that I get bored of it and completely engulf myself into the higher work. Well, I got news for you, buddy. The fact that you even said that means that you're already past it. because you know that it's not enough to keep you. But I won't stop you from trying. All right, all right. Seriously though. Oh, this is good. Starlion says, "Do you think there's intelligent civilizations out there somewhere, Trav?" Here's a question: do you think there's intelligent civilizations in there somewhere, Starlion? Think about that. Oh, you thought you ate with that one. No, I'm serious. I'm serious. How deeply can you go inward? How deeply can you go inward and find intelligence? Yeah, yeah. Take me home, home. That last line was a good one. The path is naturally one of great dynamism and purity, as it is so close to the first manifestation of the spirit in the worlds of form. Subject, of course, to the proviso that, owing to the deviation, the image in Chesed may not be the true image of the spirit. Is that why Yahweh is a jealous God? Treading the path the other way from Geburah to Chesed is the initiatory path of the Adeptus Major to the exempt adepthood of Chesed, a state of being where further incarnation in earth is unnecessary. The realizations of this path are therefore particularly profound, for they are the end result of the experience and understanding of a complete cycle of evolution. So cool. 14. Basically, the test of this path is the ability to face up to everything that has happened during the complete span of personal evolution, accepting it all for what it is, without evasions or repressions. Can you even do that with yourself, let alone with the soul? I'm gonna read that line again, and I want you to think about doing that for yourself in your current body and your current life. All right, so here we go. Basically, the test of this path strength is the ability to face up to everything that has happened during the complete span of personal evolution, accepting it all for what it is without evasions or repressions. You know that's difficult. You know you cringe, you know your shoulder kind of wince up when you think about facing everything in your life without evasions or repressions. It makes you uncomfortable. There's still things in your human incarnation that makes you uncomfortable. So that should show you where the work to be done is. Where the work to be done is. Now I know everybody doesn't want the answer. They want to be busy with something. I get it. But if you're one of those people who do want the answer, sit down and look at your entire life and locate those parts that make you uncomfortable, that make you feel and all that. And I want you to face it head on, and don't judge it, don't run from it, don't try to hide it and repress it. Face it until it doesn't affect you anymore. I don't mean you're numb. I don't mean you don't care. I mean you can look at it and accept it with equanimity, with balance, right? You can do it. You can do it. But, that's for maybe three people. It's hard, man. It ain't easy. I tell you, it ain't easy. But it's necessary. You're going to have to do it at some point. Might as well break it down now. Break down your little piece. So when you get to the big leagues, at least you can say, hey, I did my work. I don't know about the rest of y'all. I did my work. Is there any more positions open for those ascended masters? Can I just kind of scoot on through, or I gotta wait for everybody to process their karma? Oh, I gotta wait. Okay. Well, shit, man, where the bathroom at? I got them 72 versions, or was that also a lie? Mothra says, so it seems like at the end of the day, it all comes down to acceptance, accepting it all for how it really is. Yeah, that's the energy of this particular path. Being able to see reality for what it is. None of this matters. Nothing is true. Everything is permitted. Now, when I say none of this matters, I don't mean like, oh, well, let's just go kill and rape and pillage. No. What I mean is we attach ourselves to ideas and beliefs that only exist in our heads and nowhere else. And if you can let that shit go, if you can not attach to it, not cling to these illusions, you might find a certain sense of liberation before the flesh becomes useless. Does that make sense, Mothra? Because either way, like all the actions are going to have to be accounted for. Either way, everything is going to be accounted for in the sense that we're talking about energy as equation, motion as equation. So everything that's done has to be harmonized and balanced. That's why the spiritual path has a lot to do with sitting still, meditating, not, you know, uh, trying your best to live a harmonious life. Because what you're doing is just trying to neutralize this movement so that you don't have to answer for it later on down the line. And again, this is not good or evil. We're literally talking about motion and balance, raw data, but since we're using these human minds, we have to put definition and meaning and purpose. But all those things are face value. Ministry of Universal Love, peace. Ministry of Universal Love asks, are these life paths? These are not life paths. These are the 32 paths of the Kabbalah, which is basically you can look at it like a map, like a map. Like say if you got a map of the subway system or uh, you know a map of the highways, but it's connected to everything that exists. It's kind of like that, kind of like that. But you got to understand that everything that exists, we're not talking about physical stuff. We're talking about the subjective. We're talking about the mind and the soul and these things that are invisible, so to speak. Maps of that kind of thing and how it all connects. It makes sense. Let me know. Let me know. Do you love little do we love your body? Dia Andre. Peace, peace. Welcome. Dia Andre says, I'm enjoying the shift. It's awesome. It is. It is. Keep that enthusiasm, keep that energy, keep that vibe high. Let it transform you into your best version. Because that's what the world needs, Dia Andre. The world needs you to be exactly what you're supposed to be and nothing less. So keep that energy. Burn, baby, burn. Disco Inferno! Benjamin 37 says, what would life be like if everyone was an occultist in this world? Shit. Well, is that with or without uh the correction of, man, listen, human beings and these egos? I don't even want to think about that, man. I don't want to think about that. The world is perfect as it is. Let it be. So yeah, basically the test of this path is the ability to face up to everything that has happened during the complete span of personal evolution, accepting it all for what it is without evasions or repressions. It is a final reckoning up and so has similarities with the 22nd path of karmic adjustment. In this case, however, there can be no putting off of matters till a later date. Here, whatever cannot be confronted remains as an immediate barrier to any further progress. So, look, when we're talking about this part of the tree, we're talking about this level of the tree, we're talking about the angel with the flaming sword preventing Adam and Eve from entering the Garden of Eden. So what's that symbolize? There is perfection out there on the other side, for sure. There is a level of perfection, but it cannot be attained until you yourself become perfect. You can't ascend to that level until you become that. How do you become that? By harmonizing all of the motion and commotion that you've caused in your incarnation. Nothing about good versus evil, but like what's being said here, we can start with where we're at. And where we're at, we had a childhood, we had a teenagerhood, we had a young adulthood, some of us had an old adulthood. And throughout those hoods, throughout those ages, we've done some things that don't sit well with us, right? We've done other things that we cling to unnecessarily. All that stuff represents an imbalance. It's going to have to be rectified, if not now, then later. But just know, if not now, the rectification process is going to take a whole lot longer than it has to. I tell you that. Let me know if this is making sense. Spiritual lesson sessions. Welcome back. Coop TGS says, so far, my takeaway from this path is accept and let go. Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Kirsty says, whoa, this is amazing. I agree with you, Kirsty. Welcome. All right, we're going to keep going. Whatever cannot be confronted remains as an immediate barrier to any further progress. So, look, we all want progress. So, let's deal with our shortcomings now while we can, while we have the time to. It will do nothing but good for us, right? It does nothing but good for us. 15. This is also a path, therefore, which tends to be viewed with some trepidation. It is not merely a case of being weighed in the balance and the worst excrescences. That's a nice word. Excrescences. That's a lot of C's and S's. It is not merely a case of being weighed in the balance and the worst excrescences of the soul being rejected. On this path, there can be no more rejection, for rejection is against the law of love. Ooh, did you hear that? Or synthesis, which is the ray upon which our solar logos universe is based. So that's the law of this universe, love, which is also synthesis. Love is not merely hugging and kissing and buying somebody chocolates. I love you. Love is synthesis. Now look at what was said here, because this is important. Remember before on the previous two paths where we talked about how the soul also is evolving and growing, and as the soul accepts the incarnation as it dies, right? So all the different people, when they die, they go back up to their soul. When the soul accepts these incarnations, there's parts of what was said in the previous chapter was that the incarnation and its life, its pattern, its total vibration, it's everything that the life did. It's weighed up to it compared to the Holy Spirit. It's compared to the top. And whatever matches that frequency is absorbed into the soul. And whatever did not match that frequency is rejected. So you got to think all the incarnations and all the people who died and go back up to their soul. Some of them is kept, a lot of them is discarded. Now, that discarded stuff isn't going away. There's no trash can. Well, there is a trash can, but all of that discarded experience from all those past lives is collected, and it starts to coagulate and stick together and stink up the place. And eventually, the soul has to face that mess. It has to reabsorb all that throwaway. And the soul doesn't want to. I mean, shit, I wouldn't want to either, but it has to at the end of the day if the soul is to complete its mission. If the soul is to continue to perfect itself, it must find a way to reabsorb and reintegrate the negative experiences of its incarnations. All right. So if the soul that you belong to also has an incarnation over here of a serial killer who likes to cut people up and pop eyeballs out and do all kind of horrible things, well, when the soul brings him up, I'm sure that there's good parts about that person, right? Maybe that person uh, made sure to always buy Girl Scout cookies and tipped his waiters and waitresses. Maybe that person did some good things. The soul can absorb that, but all that horrible stuff, the soul doesn't want to relive that. The soul doesn't want to go through that again. So it's thrown into like this rubbish pile. So all these life incarnations and rubbish piles build up to the point where it doesn't matter whose it was. It's just this big mess of nastiness. Well, even the soul is going to have to one day absorb all that. Thank you, Rosa Flame. Excrescence, a distinct outgrown on a human or animal body or plant, especially result of a disease or abnormality. Ah, okay, I see. I see. Jax, it does not go in order. Um, it's like this. You should probably get this diagram if you don't have it. It's very useful, especially if you're trying to learn this stuff. You'll see that the paths, there is an order to them, but it's not just straight up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 because you got diagonals and stuff, so it can't be that way. But this is like I said, it's more like a map. It's more like a subway terminal map, and it's showing you the location of different patterns of change, different energy, different equations of consciousness to matter. And at the very top, you've got pure, undifferentiated consciousness. And at the bottom, you've got pure, undifferentiated matter. And they meet in the middle right here. That's where the soul is. We're currently on a book study at this level, and we've covered many of the lower levels. Kirsty says, is this kind of Jewish philosophy? I would say no to that. I would say no to that. I haven't heard anything about Jewish in these studies at all, ever. So I would have to say a hard no to that. Patchwork says, so like a cancer. Yes, yes, that is what, yeah. El Shaddai says, Vishnu, Brahma, Shiva, Yeshiva, Yeshua, Joshua, Jesus. Amen to that, brother. Coop TGS says, Trav, all that nastiness the soul experiences. Basically, my question is the clip off closer to matter, or is it really just mental? Earth being basically a canvas without meaning. Yeah, closer to that second one. Because you'll find the clip off everywhere, except Kether. I mean, I guess you could call the entire tree the clip off of Kether. I won't judge. But the clip off, it's not exactly like how people depict it. It's not exactly like a whole separate tree on the bottom or behind. It's more like, you ever have those Ferrero Rocher candies where they're wrapped up. They're the chocolate balls with the cream in the middle, and they're wrapped up in that nice little gold foil, all fancy like. And you got to twist it. And once you open up the wrapper, you get the chocolate and you enjoy it. The clip off is like that wrapper around all the Sephiroth. It's like the wrap around all the Sephiroth. And that's probably why they call them the shells. It's if the chocolate is to be enjoyed and eaten, you cannot eat the wrapper. It must be discarded, right? But it has a purpose and a function, doesn't it? It keeps those chocolate balls safe. So in that sense, I mean, yeah, because the clip off, it's not strictly matter. It's also subjective too. There are ideas and concepts that are in the clip off. So, like I said, it's behind every Sephiroth. Come on, come on, come on. Jack says, what number comes next after this one, a tropa? It's going to be the Wheel of Fortune and the Hanged Man. So, whatever numbers those are, Wheel of Fortune and Hanged Man. Hey, if you like this video, if you like these book studies, if you're learning something, or if you're just being entertained, either way, hit the like button. I believe you got to tap something up in the top right corner. Where's it at? Ooh, did my phone freeze? There it is. Somewhere up here. You tap that, tap the like button, and that's basically telling the YouTube algorithm that we like this guy, we want to see more of his videos. Coop TGS says, you just checkmated me with that answer, lol. Thank you. New level unlocked. Wonderful. Wonderful. Oracle Weird. Peace. Peace. All right, let's keep going. We got more stuff to understand. More stuff to understand. So, complete cycle of evolution. Did we already read that? Karmic adjustment, barrier. Okay, yeah, 15. So, we are talking about the strength, the path that this card represents, the energy, the cycle, the process that this card represents. Remember, the lion itself, it does represent the elemental force, but it represents the soul. So we're actually talking about the Akash element. And the woman in the lovely white garment of purity, that is the Holy Spirit, the High Spirit, the Most High. The Most High. That's why she's got infinity above her head. Because she ain't really here. Opening the mouth is the symbol of controlling the physical body or something of that nature. Mouth being Pe, being the path of the tower, which represents um, the upper portion of the mind, the part of the mind that's in direct contact with the soul. So you're looking at the spirit in relation to the soul, not the higher self in the body, like I thought. This is the spirit and the soul. Check. And as far as that big takeaway, you guys talked about facing your stuff and integrating it. That, and also remember what was said in the very beginning. This path serves as what's the word he used? That girder, as the girder. So think about the prism, the weight of the Holy Spirit, undifferentiated consciousness pressing down, pouring down through this path into the soul. And it serves as that prism that has to break that light into parts and pieces to kind of spread it out, to diffuse it is the word that he used, right? The same way that Georgia Power or whatever power company you got has to break that power down before it gets to your outlet. Or I don't know about electricity. I think the generator's outside the house. Anyways, you don't get it uh uncut from Georgia Power. You got to cut it a couple times before you can use it on your microwave. Same deal. Holy Spirit is way too powerful that would blow your socks off. So the soul is there as the mediator, right? This is also the Christ to break it down and distribute the budget. And that's why your soul has multiple incarnations, because it's got a lot of work to do. All right, 15. This is also a path, therefore, which tends to be viewed with some trepidation. It is not merely a case of being weighed in the balance and the worst excrescences, and that's like an outgrowth, like a cancer, like an extra nasty mole that you don't like. It's not merely the case of being weighed in the balance and the worst excrescences of the soul being rejected. On this path, there can be no more rejection. Yeah, that's why we had to go back. Because on this path, there is no more rejection. For rejection is against the law of love. Check that out. New definition for love, right? New definition for love. Love, or synthesis, which is the ray upon which our solar logos' universe is based. There are, of course, none so blind as those who will not see. But on this path, all are made to see. You ain't running from nothing up here. Any excrescences are not merely entered in the book of Thoth, as on the 22nd path. They are clawed and ripped away forcefully. Thus, the Egyptian cat and lion-headed goddess, Bast and Sekhmet, are relevant to this path. 16. So the path is not a pleasant one, but only for the reason that we who tread it are not pleasant people. Oh, so you're telling me that magic doesn't make you crazy? You come that way already? Ooh. Um, are we allowed to say crazy? Or am I able to get canceled for saying crazy? So it's not magic that makes you insane. You probably were already that before you got to magic. It's not magic that makes people evil. You were probably like that before you got here. It's not magic that makes you stank. It's because you don't wash your behind. So the path is not a pleasant one, but only for the reason that we who tread it are not pleasant people. The pure in soul could, like Daniel, Androcles, and the rest, tread it without fear of hurt. Oh, that's how I can work with demons. And the word hurt is used advisedly. One may be hurt by the corrosive action of karma, but one cannot come to harm by it. That's nice. Let me read that again. One may be hurt by the corrosive action of karma, but one cannot come to harm by it. Isn't that a sobering thought? Sometimes things hurt, but it doesn't actually harm you, right? It hurts your feelings, but when you look at it, sometimes you didn't really get hurt. Here's me looking at my situation right now. I didn't actually get hurt. I just had my feelings hurt. Big difference. One may be hurt by the corrosive action of karma, but one cannot come to harm by it, unless, of course, one should venture too far too soon or try to avoid issues when their time is ripe. I like that. I like that. When the time is ripe. You ever see something coming up on the horizon and you dread it and you're like, oh my God, I don't want this to happen. And it gets closer and it gets closer and it gets closer. And then I don't know about you, but you start to intuitively feel, okay, I have to address this now, right? Because, if you don't, it then goes from being something dreaded to being an actual problem, right? When it's ripe and needs to be dealt with, don't be a coward because then you will get hurt. I'm not going to hurt you, but you will get hurt. One may be hurt by the corrosive action of karma, but one cannot come to harm by it, unless, of course, one should venture too far too soon, or try to avoid issues when their time is ripe. The confrontation of all past experience also entails taking responsibility for it. This may seem difficult to understand, for the immediate usual reaction is to put blame upon others for all misfortunes. Please get out of that habit. No scapegoats. No scapegoats. No devil to blame. No devil to blame. Leave that to the spiritual children, the spiritual babies. We don't blame the devil over here. Over here, we don't. Because we understand that this is just another force of nature that is here to assist us in our growth. Wait a minute now. Oh. Garrett Case says, I have no clue what this book is, but I hope you come to find the Lord Jesus Christ. God bless, friend. Salvation is found in Christ alone. Oh, yeah, you must be referring to Tifereth. That's a great, great part of the tree. And we did go over that section not long ago. So, yeah, we did find Christ. He's in this book, too. I'm a sucker for cornrows and manicured toes. It's 11:11. Where my 11:11's at. Underlay, underlay, my man, oh. What's poppin' tonight? If the head right, nearly there every night. Who am I kidding? I've taken the path of least resistance. Underlay, underlay, my man, oh. Fat Tony, I was just thinking about you. I was like, did Tony leave? Are you still here? Let's see. Oh, you talking about the Christian dude. Gotcha, gotcha. Underlay, underlay. Kevin Wise, peace and greetings. Sly, peace, peace. All right, let's continue. We've passed the 11:11 gateway. And I love how I said short book read, but this is like the average, regular, normal time. So don't avoid issues when their time is right. That would be a foolish thing to do. 17. The confrontation of binary. The confrontation of all past experience also entails taking responsibility for it. This may seem difficult to understand, for the immediate usual reaction is to put blame upon others for all misfortunes, though personal credit is usually taken for successful circumstances. Isn't that funny? We blame other people for the problems, but when something goes good, oh, we quick to take that credit. Yeah, well, I'm somewhat of a scientist myself. We knew it was not going to be short. Yeah, man. That's what she said. Random Lilith. Excuse me, Realm Lilith. Peace, peace. Peace, peace. Melissa says Matthew 6:34. So do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. Amen, Melissa. Amen. You're on it. You're on it with that. It may seem difficult to see why one is responsible for everything that happens to one, but given a belief in reincarnation, and that's the key right there, it should not be too difficult to realize that even the things one would apparently be least responsible for, one's childhood circumstances, for example, are in fact, I know you don't want to hear it, I know it, the result of one's own interincarnationary desires. We make our own karma to a large extent. And I know when it gets to these sensitive subjects, people don't like it. But the thing is, like, what does it boil down to? Are you deeply, so deeply attached to your physical body and your ego that you believe that this is the center of the universe? Because if you do, then it'll be hard to accept something like what he just said there. How could you say that? I didn't cause any of that. You know, and not to make light, because some people have gone through some really serious things, right? Not to make light of that. But me just speaking in general here, I can't be talking about anybody specific because I don't know your situation. But I know pattern recognition, I know symbols, and I know this science here. If you can say that I am not the body, and you can also say that I'm not the mind, right? And if you're pointing to the direction of saying I'm the soul, if that's what you believe, if that's what you're following, if that's what you're going with, then you'll have to understand that along with that comes reincarnation and comes the dealing of karma. And means that the body that you've incarnated into in this life is not you, it's a vessel for processing karma, whatever that lot of karma may be. How deep is your attachment to this vessel? So I mean, that's what it depends on. Like I said, I don't know anybody's situation, and I'm not making light of anyone's painful situations. But spiritual principles are true regardless of any external circumstance. And the part that I'm specifically referring to here is the attachment aspect. How attached are you to this concept of I am this ego? I am this personality that I created. This is me, you know? Elisha Eternal says, studying this information made me realize my father dying at a young age was a ritual activation itself. Exactly. Exactly. In fact, all of the situations that happen and the major situations in our lives are activations. The soul is constantly in this process of growth and expansion, constantly. And we are doing our part in that. So yeah, being able to see that is taking the power in that situation, right? Owning that context. It isn't something that happened to you, it's something that happened for you, for your growth, for your benefit, for your rise. And that's not just simply some, feel good, encouraging words. Like, that's what it is. Patrick says, I'm so ready to move on from the past. All it takes is to do it. All it takes is to do it. Action steps, right? And what is an action step? An action step is identifying your faith, identifying your conviction and what you said, and moving from that space, right? Moving from that space. That could be as simple as saying something out loud into the mirror. That stuff matters. How you dress, how you carry yourself, how you arrange your living space, the things that you say under your breath, all that matters because all those things are vessels for the energetic communication. Mm. Yeah, like Rosa Flame says, you're welcome, brother, and be sure to thank yourself. I was thinking about this earlier, man. My body has its own intelligence, my ego has its own intelligence, and then there's my soul that has its own intelligence. And there are things that each one of those intelligences are doing on their own. And there's also a cooperation with these intelligences that might be going on behind my back. Like, we have to understand that the conscious mind that we are using doesn't know everything. It don't even know everything about your specific individual situation, right? Because how much of your past do you remember? How much of today do you remember? Like, this conscious mind only holds a little bit of information at a time, just a little bit. So how wonderful that our body has its own process and it can remember to breathe and blink, and it remembers other things too. It's a lot smarter than we give it credit for. And then you've also got the soul working for the long range, the long term. Oh man, this is we can go deep with that, but Louis, peace. We could go into the angels and the demons on that note. Learning to spiritually code. Hmm. We make our own karma to a large extent. And if one is of the turn of mind that considers the laws of the universe to be harsh, or even unjust or tyrannous, there is the fact that originally no spirit was forced to enter the manifest universe. All ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil of their own free will. That is to say, that all entered into a cooperation with the solar logos voluntarily, giving their aid in building and evolving the universe in return for the evolutionary experience that this would bring, thus equipping each human being with the means to become a god or any other of the high alternatives of cosmic evolution. This is not a punishment. This is not a prison, right? This is a process. This is a process. It's not a prison. Boom, boom. Don't sleep on it. Don't sleep on it. Guys, it just dawned on me. It doesn't matter. Matter is going to do what matter does. It doesn't matter. Exactly, Patchwork. Exactly. And see, this is what got me on to this whole thing about the elemental spirits and the elemental forces. They are doing what they're supposed to do. The elements matter. Matter does what matter does. So, what else exists besides matter? Consciousness. Which one are you? Which one are you? Does you even exist? Does you even exist? Koop TGS says by Dharana are the impurities of the mind thrown off, by Pratyahara, impurities of attachment, and by Samadhi is taken off everything that hides the lordship of the soul. Upanishad. So, I want you to take a minute to realize how fortunate we are to even have those words in our brain, to even have those words in our personal lives. How many people do you see that have never heard of a dharana, have never heard of a pratyahara, have never heard of samadhi? Think about how fortunate you are to even know that these things exist. So we all entered here on our own free will with the agreement to evolve. 18. Most, of course, subsequently took their hands away from the plow, or tried to. The results are over familiar. The goal for humanity remains, however, for all who press on to the uttermost, as all eventually will. Some hints of the glories of the cosmic future, some hints of the glories of the cosmic future in store are contained in the Tibetan master's book, The Rays and Initiations, written by Alice Bailey. I've always wanted to get into that, but like, there's always kind of been like this barrier. Maybe I'll get into it. The Rays and Initiations. Because I would hear Dion Fortune constantly mention the Rays in mystical Kabbalah and also cosmic doctrine, but I never really got into the Rays at all. Patrick says, think about how many people never heard of Kabbalah. Right. Right. So, you know what I'm saying? So, the simple fact that we even are aware that these things exist, you ain't even got to be following it. Just the fact that you know that it's a reality, that speaks volume. Because we was just talking about reincarnation, right? That speaks volumes for where you are energetically, for where you are energetically. Shit. Instead of studying this, you could be studying the Diddy trial in detail. You could be a Diddy trial expert. Yeah, well, this happened and that happened. You know they about to do this, and I heard you could just be filling up your brain with that stuff all day and all night, and then going to sleep, waking up, going to work, working hard, getting exhausted, coming home and gossiping some more about somebody else's business. You could be doing that. You could be doing that all day. Philip, peace, peace. Louis says, "Yeah, I suggested her to you, and you seemed like you weren't interested." Yeah, yeah, I think there was. I don't know. It's still there too, but I think I'll get around to it at some point. Inter, intergetic, energetic. Jax says, "Yeah, I missed what he said. What he last said about entering here under our own free will. To what? Or then what did he say after free will? He mentioned the solar logos, I believe. Let's go back and see. Hmm. What did he say about the free will? All right, so we'll just read it again. We make our own karma to a large extent, and if one is of the turn of mind that considers the laws of the universe to be harsh or even unjust or tyrannous, there is the fact that originally no spirit was forced to enter the manifest universe. No spirit was forced to enter the manifest universe. All ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil of their own free will. That is to say, that all entered into a cooperation with the solar logos voluntarily. So logos is like the word, the voice, the great mind of this solar system, basically. Like you could say the group soul of this of this solar system. All the lives of our planet and beyond. So all this consciousness. The class that came before us and the class that's coming after us. We all decided, you know what? Let's do it. Fuck it, I'm in. Let's go. When do we leave? Can I bring my CD player? No, they got CD players on Earth. Okay, fine. So that is to say, all that entered into a cooperation with the solar logos voluntarily, giving their aid in building an evolving universe in return for what? For the evolutionary experience that this would bring, thus equipping each human being with the means to become a god or any other of the high alternatives of cosmic evolution. Most, of course, subsequently took their hands away from the plow or tried to. The results are overfamiliar. The goal for humanity remains, however, for all who press on to the uttermost, as all eventually will. Some hints of the glories to come of the cosmic future, then in store, are contained in the Tibetan master's book, The Rays and Initiations, written by Alice Bailey, Lucis Trust, London and New York. In the meantime, the way in between remains. And the key to that way is acceptance of fact and acceptance of responsibility for it. So, who would have thought that that is a major takeaway for strength? Acceptance. Who would have thought? But then again, look at that lion. He looks as if he is accepting what's happening here. This ain't a fight. This is a dance. Let me know. Let me know. Love Hurt says, is black magic real? What is real? What is real? DZ says, yes, everything is real. Everything is fake. Life is based on perception. Crux or Socks says, read Leviticus 25, 44, 46. There we go. Jack says, got it. Excellent. Do you love it when I do when I'm loving your body? Do you love it when I do when I'm loving your body? Noel King, peace, peace, peace and greetings. All right, we have reached the end. Let's see what we wrap this up with. 19. It was attempted avoidance of fact and responsibility that led to all the trouble in the first place. Continued avoidance only makes matters worse. That's interesting that I'm reading this today, the video that I posted, and also my situation. I love these book reads, man. Magical in so many different ways. The reason for this avoidance was, in the first place, fear of pain. And this fear remains to this day. To this day. This is the reason why responsibility for error cannot be faced, why it has to be pushed compulsively and automatically onto another. To accept the truth about one's own deep-seated faults is painful. It's painful. 20. There is only one way finally to overcome this fear and pain, and that is to accept it. The symbolism of drinking, oh my God, and it's so true, man. I'm telling you, if you're running from something, just face it. Just face it. It might hurt you, but it ain't gonna harm you. Like homie said, it might hurt you, but it's not gonna harm you if you know the difference. Why are you running? There's only one way to finally there's only one way finally to overcome this fear and pain, and that is to accept it. The symbolism of drinking from the cup is a well-known one in esoteric writings. But what does it mean in terms of actual fact? It means the realization and full acceptance within ourselves of the way we have departed from our true path of spiritual destiny. The realization and full acceptance within ourselves of the way we have departed from our true path of spiritual destiny. Sounds like the soul is going to have to face up to its actions for making the decisions that led to the fall in the first place. That's what it sounds like to me. Because this is not merely accepting your humanity, because this stuff is an illusion. But guess what? That soul is what's really having to, because think about it. When you die, when your body dies, it's the soul that is reintegrating the experience, right? It's the soul that's reintegrating that experience. So the soul is responsible for this, man. The soul, wow, this is mind-boggling. As above, so below. When you're doing shadow work down here, what you're really doing is bringing the information back home to the soul so it knows how to let go and how to face itself. You're teaching your soul how to do shadow work when you do it down here. I promise you're not going to hear that on TikTok ever. I promise you that. Listen, man. Tell me that fell out your pocket, man. Tell me this shit fell out your pocket, man. The drinking of the cup is the complete acceptance of the way we have erred. And the way each has erred is the way each has erred and cannot be altered by one hair's breadth. So there is no point in wasting time rejecting what we have done. If we spend our time crying about the past or refusing to acknowledge it, we are rejecting the way we have come. We are rejecting our sin, our responsibility. And in the degree that we reject the sin, or the imperfections of each one of us, in that degree do we fail to understand how resurrected life may be achieved. Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. Spiritual lesson session says you'd think it'd know after all this time. Well, that's the thing, right? The soul isn't perfect. It's learning just like we are. Now, of course, the difference is between maybe a first grader and what do you call it? A master grad student. The difference is, that many levels. Master's grad, that's what it is, master student to a first grader. You and us being the first grader, the soul being the master's degree person. But the soul is learning too. The soul's processing too, and the soul does see on the horizon the issue that needs to be faced. There is a obvious elephant in the room, for sure. But imagine how it must feel as a master's grad student person to look at a first grader solving a problem that you have with grace and dignity. That would kind of make you want to step your game up, wouldn't it? Right? How we live our lives matters because this is the data that we're taking back to the soul. And who knows? Maybe there's only a little bit left to clean up. Maybe you've already done a really good job. Maybe we're just kind of, doing a little bit of the detail cleaning. Hmm. Good stuff. Good stuff. Ooh. Ashley says, Jesus accepted the sins of all men and was resurrected. Seems it could correlate all mankind. Absolutely. Right? And see, honestly, like this Kabbalah has taught me so much more depth about Jesus than any church has. We talking about something on a much bigger scale than Sunday morning. Reach out and touch somebody's hand. Make this world a better place if you can. Turn to your neighbor and say, neighbor, neighbor, I will do my shadow work so my soul can move on in peace. Amen. That's the wrong neighbor. Turn to your other neighbor and say that. I see you patchwork with that Silent Hill. Honestly, though, I think that the lessons are in many, many places. We're drawn to them subconsciously. That's why we find them in our favorite movies and our favorite games and stuff like that. We're drawn to these concepts. That's why we keep finding them. Ain't no coincidences, man. That's why Terrence Howard found his mixtape in the toilet, right? We're drawn to these experiences. That's why we keep finding them. Turn to your neighbor and say, neighbor, tell me this fell out your pocket. Tell me this fell out your pocket. Love Hurt says, can you pray for me to get my life on track? It's been 3 years. I have been trying. Absolutely. Absolutely. I will. You know what? I think you should too. I think you should too. Understand that you're literally one belief away, one ritual away, one action away, dude. Because if you've been doing the same thing over and over, get the same results over and over, that means that the actions that you're doing keep leading you in circles. And if it's been going on for 3 years, you know perfectly like an expert the path that you're taking over and over. So all it takes is one decision for you to take a different step and go in a different direction. That's all. So make sure that when you pray for yourself too, along with me, we're gonna pray side by side in the astral plane. Make sure that you make that decision to take that alternate step. Do it once, do it twice, 3 times a lady. 3 times a lady. And you know what, man? If you're really serious, why don't you watch my previous video, the one that was posted just before this? You'll be all right. That was a 3 year lesson, 3 year tuition. You're gonna be all right. But you just make sure you identify the loop that you're in because it starts with a trigger and the trigger leads to a response and the response leads to a pattern and you do it every day. You know it. You're an expert at it. You're so good at it. You're probably better than I am at it. But the thing is, just before the trigger starts, because you can identify it, choose to do something different. Just try it. Trust me, you've been doing it for 3 years. You got time. Try it. Tell me this fell out your pocket, man. Tell me this fell out your pocket, man. You went high pitched on the second one. Y'all don't know how funny that is, man. Y'all don't know how funny that is. Those were his hopes and dreams. All right, let's wrap this up for real, though. We got, what, one more paragraph left? No diggity. Cosmic Puzzle Piece says, we make our own hero story. We make our own tragedy. Right. Al Dickey, that's my real name. Dirty neighbor say, neighbor, whoop that trick. DJ, that's the name. And I come to bring the pain. Ashley B says, definitely. I never really resonated with Christianity, but something studying this has opened me up to what it's actually supposed to be teaching. Right, right. I've learned more about Christ and Kabbalah than I have in any church. That's probably because, these people don't know that aspect of Christ. All right, so let us conclude. mm, 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 mm. Kirsty says the Arabic translation of Genesis talks about the true symbology, how the elements were made first, the spirit as air, moving and creating the water's potentiality, and what divided the waters, earth. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm not no donkey, no jackass. Republicans and Democrats. Why did they choose those symbols? I'm sure there's an occult metaphysical significance. Skinny man, skinny man, tell me this shit fell out your pocket, man. Al Dickey, I know you threw down yesterday. I know for a fact you threw down. I can smell the grill. I can smell the smoker all the way down here. I know for a fact you threw down. You probably had something exotic on that grill. All right, let's finish up. Notes on the design of Trump 11. This card is numbered 8 by the Golden Dawn, Waite, Case, and Crowley. The Marseilles card shows a woman in a Liminesket hat holding the jaws of a lion. Opinion of commentators is divided between whether she is opening its mouth, closing its mouth, or holding its head to her breast after having stunned it. Levy and Pappas considered she was closing its jaws, but of the versions we are here reviewing, all show her to be opening them except Waite and Zane. In no case does the lion seem to be stunned or held to her breast. The basic symbolism is the same on all cards. The Golden Dawn thought a dark veil should float about her head and cling around her. Knapp puts well gnawed bones about in the foreground. Manly P. Hall's symbol, this time being a swan. Waite and Case dispense with the limnesket hat and substitute a similar shaped nimbus and a floral wreath. They also show the lion being led by a chain of flowers, obviously roses, probably white roses, on Case's card and probably on Waite's. The chain forms a figure of 8 about the lion's neck, about her waist. Waite and Case show trees in the background and a conical hat, which also suggests in naps. The Egyptian version shows the woman in a vulture headdress and with uraeus, surmounted by a vase and crowned eagles. Above is a simple frieze, and below, paintings of nature and something after the style of Akhenaten period. The Crowley Harris card shows a naked woman holding a flaming holy grail, riding upon a lion. The lion has 7 heads, those of an angel, a saint, a poet, a warrior, bacchant, and satyr sharing the neck, and the tail being a lion serpent. The reins with which the lion is harnessed are said to represent passion, and there are dim martyrs' heads under the lion's feet. 10 luminous rayed circles represent the Sephiroth, and there are 10 snake like horns of a destroying, creating beast at the top of the card, round an emblem of new light. Crowley preferred to call this card lust, somewhat in the sense of lust for life. In the past, it has been known as either force or fortitude. An early design of a card called Force shows a woman haloed in a dress embroidered with trifoliate crosses, effortlessly breaking a stone pillar. Okay, so I can see why Crowley would call it lust, right? Um, because if this card is representing that pure, undifferentiated consciousness of the Holy Spirit coming down into the higher self and being diffused. It's literally prana. It's prana that's being shared. It's prana that's being distributed. So I can now see why it's called lust. The card is called lust in the Crowley deck because it's the Shekinah, not the Shekinah. It's the Shakti. That's the word. It's the Shakti. It's the prana Shakti flowing throughout existence. So it's nothing to do with horniness and sex, even though that, it's probably why he did it, because, people are going to think that. But it's really talking about that Kundalini energy. That's cool. That's cool. That's actually really cool. I like that now. Rosa Flame says, plus, the more you understand Babylon and her symbolism, it's super fitting too. Okay. Hmm. I'm glad I got that clarification on that specific card, because I always looked at it like, why did he make it a horny card? It could have just been strength. Like, why is it the woman from Revelations? I didn't know the history, but that opened my eyes just there. What's your name, man? Willie James Huff, better known as Allah Rakbar. Good stuff. Good stuff. Okay, so that concludes tonight's book study, you all. Atropa says that's the 10th card I got today, being the Lust card of the Thoth Crowley Tarot. I really got to get my hands on that deck. I have the book, but I mean, I had a bunch of other decks. I'll get it. I'll get it. Okay, that's it. I hope that you all learned something. And oh, look at this. Look at this. Not only are we done, but we just wrapped up part one. So, what we're going to be getting into next, and this is another reason why I want to stop here, influences upon the personality. So, we just described the higher self. Now, we're going to talk about the chains of influence that affect the personality. So, the personality, remember, being the lower self, the individuality being the soul. We're going to talk about how the connection of how the higher self influences the soul. This is going to be the Chariot and the Wheel of Fortune. So if you don't have this book, why not go ahead and get it? Maybe read ahead, write down your notes and your thoughts so that when we do the next book study, you can be like, okay, so I was thinking about this and I thought that and now I understand it better. That type shit. That type shit. All right. La Hermite. La Hermite. Oh, you're right. My bad, Rosa Flame. My bad. It's Hanged Man and Fortune. Hanged Man and Wheel of Fortune. Chariot is higher up. Chariot is higher up. Yeah, so the Hanged Man and Fortune. I gotta get my stuff right. It's all good. All good. All right. Thank you all for being here. This is always a great use of my time. I expect great things from all of you. I expect great things from myself. I'm super pumped and excited about this next season of content. I hope that you are ready for the dark side. I created a monster. Y'all don't want to see Marshall no more. You want Shady. I'm chopped liver. They don't want the unicorn and the rose and the diamond. In fact, I've been called from the depths. You know what it was? It's probably doing all them Saturn mantras. That's probably what it was. Doing all them damn Saturn mantras. The Goetia has wakened up, screaming and screeching and howling as they do. But I look forward to what will be brought to the forefront. Rose of Flames, I thought you said you got it recently. I pulled the book out. I pulled the book out recently because I was looking up some more, cross-referencing some more tarot, and I pulled the book out from a different bookshelf, and it was right behind me. But no, I still don't have the deck itself. All right. All right. What's the score looking like? Who got first place? Do they have that scoreboard up there again, or not this time? They probably don't because it's vertical. All right. That's that. This has been great. Thank you for being here. This is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX777. I love you. Peace.